Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Robbie Suave.
And I'm Amber Duke. CNN panelist Scott Jennings sparked a fiery debate on CNN's Newsnight after defending X as the most ideologically balanced social media platform.
Tensions escalated when Jennings clashed with panelists who called for stricter regulation of speech on X, pointing to Elon Musk's close ties to President-elect Donald Trump and his collaboration with the incoming administration. Now, when asked to cite his claim of X being the most ideologically balanced social media site, Jennings stunned the other panelists when he said, it's in the network's own reporting. Watch for yourself.
I heard what you're saying about X. I saw a survey this week. It's now the most ideologically balanced user platform.
Scott,
of any platform.
stop. It's too early. I just sat down. I've only been here for 2 minutes.
You
cannot continue to say
the show, but
you
it's
cannot
true.
say that.
So,
That's not the case.
So
Who's the source
of that? What I find, we reported it on this network.
It's not accurate, and you know it.
Okay, I'll let you make your statement.
Scott,
but my point is
can I reframe it a different way? Because the site changed radically, right? So whether you think the voices it is somehow more balanced now, that's fine. But no doubt Musk's influence is profound, and that you open it up and now you're there with his opinion, and he is now part of this administration. So does anyone else think that there should be this greater concern about billionaires purchasing media companies?
Okay. Would you be worried if Bill Gates controlled MSNBC?
No, because he's sane.
I made this point when we discussed this on Rising, but right, they're suddenly mad that there's a billionaire controlling a social media site, even though wealthy, elite, progressive people have controlled many media institutions, media companies. Amazon's CEO, founder, Jeff Bezos, owns the Washington Post, et cetera, and so on. And it was never a problem. And now you have someone who does have right-wing pro-Trump politics now owning X, and they melt down. I don't know if X is the most ideologically, I'm not quite sure what that means, to have the site be ideologically balanced. Its owner is not ideologically balanced. Its owner is a conservative. But what has happened is that people who liked it the way it was before, when it was very tilted toward progressivism or leftism, have fled the site. And so now I think the user base on the site is more right-leaning than it was previously. So there's more of a demand, an appetite for conservative or alternative or contrarian content. And so the algorithm is promoting more of that. I don't think it's because, I really don't think it's because Elon flipped a switch and was like, flood everyone with conservative commentary. I think it's that the user base has moved to the right and wants that kind of commentary.
It's the user base, because when you look at the survey itself, it was prior to Elon Musk's ownership, about 65% of the user base was liberal, and now it's about 46 to 44%, almost evenly split conservative versus liberal. So it's more representative of the general population when we just look at the election results from earlier this month.
Slightly center-right country.
I know.
If it
shocking.
was representative, it would be a slightly center-right social media site.
Exactly. And again, if they don't like that, they don't have to use it. No one's forcing them to be on Twitter. I'm sure plenty of them like Blue Sky, where you get flagged for using the wrong pronouns or whatever and your account gets banned. You're allowed to be on there if you want. And if you prefer something that is more representative, then you can be on Twitter. But you're right. I mean, they only have a problem with billionaire ownership when the billionaire owner does not comport with their worldview. Yeah. They didn't have a problem with Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post until suddenly the Washington Post did not endorse Kamala Harris. Then all of a sudden, Jeff Bezos became enemy number one. It's just another indication of how out of step they are with the American populace.
Yeah, and I usually think some of the criticisms of media that focus on ownership or advertisers or whatever the business model is exaggerated by critics, whether they're left or right-leaning, as like the sort of like why the information is bad. So, well, who's paying for it, or who's? Usually, it's more, to my mind, it's just the actual personalities of the people involved. It's not because like MSNBC is its commentary is often bad because I just think the hosts of that have bad viewpoints, right? I don't actually think it's like advertisers are demanding that they say things that I think are bad. It's more just those are the actual views of the people running the place, or the views of the audience that they're catering to. Now, it's a diminishing and a shrinking audience of people who feel that way, but audience capture is more of an impact for whether you're legacy media or alternative media or whatever, than advertisers or billionaire ownership. But that's a criticism the leftist people have made for forever.
And their fundamental argument is that if there's more conservative ideas on a platform, then there's more misinformation, which is giving the game away because they think that conservatives are stupid, that their ideas are all wrong, that they're constantly spreading misinformation, and it's the elite liberals who have to control the access to the flow of information because they're the ones who can properly suss out what's true and what's false, not Americans able to see for themselves and determine for themselves if the information that they're looking at is accurate. And it's this sort of very arrogant idea that they're the ones who have a monopoly on truth, which we talked about earlier in the show. That the reason that people who go to universities tend to be more liberal is because liberal thought is just more correct.
Right.
And this is why the public has turned against them, because it is this really pie-in-the-sky idea that their way of thinking is the only correct way of thinking, not that this really is a marketplace of different ideas. Obviously, there's nuance in all kinds of different stories. There's plenty of times where the liberal media have gotten stories drastically wrong. And so to put the blame on there being more conservative thought as opposed to actually the monopolization of liberal thought has caused people to realize how flawed your worldview is. It's a cope, and it's a mechanism for them to try to retain power.
Everybody gets things wrong. I mean, I correct things in conservative media and in liberal media, but it's these kinds of the elite fact-checking type people who are usually of a liberal origin. For instance, on Facebook, the third-party fact-checking groups on that social media site are terrible. They've flagged reason-related content on COVID and on environmental topics, videos by John Stossel that are absolutely defensible and correct. And when he goes back to them and says, no, you're making a claim that you're saying this claim I made is false, I actually didn't make this claim, or here are the sources for that claim, then they have to go, oh, shoot, you're right. Well, but you're supposed to be you said you're the expert, and you're the sole authority to weigh in on this. We're just saying there should be discussion and debate. Not that anyone who disagrees with us should be thrown off social media. I certainly don't think people I disagree with should be thrown off social media unless they violate some real hard and fast rules on like saying violent things or whatever, that we generally, most people agree that yes, should be some kind of structure and some kind of limits, but it was just way too tilted toward anything that departs, not just from experts, but from government experts, particularly when it came to COVID or national security subjects. It's experts saying, well, the government says this is advancing a Russian narrative, or this is advancing an anti-health narrative. Like, aren't you supposed to be skeptical of what the government is telling you you ought to think? Progressive media people even used to be better on this when it came to national security. When there was during the Bush administration, there was I would argue, correct skepticism at some points, not all points. They all went along with the Iraq War at the beginning. But then there was skepticism coming from what national security experts at that time were saying, no, this is the right thing, this is the right strategy. And now it's like if you're questioning what the FBI thinks, you're treated as some extremist ideologue. I'm like, didn't you people used to do that?
Even now on YouTube, if you post a video that questions the prevailing COVID science from March of 2020, you get a flag on your video or you get demonetized. And same thing with saying certain things about January 6th. Like if you question one individual's involvement in what they may or may not did or said, then suddenly you're an insurrectionist.
Yes.
And there's no room for gray areas whatsoever on a lot of these liberal platforms. And that's what X has tried to correct is actually, no, let's have a real debate about the issues so that we can suss out. That's the only way to suss out truth. It's not one arbitrary person deciding that they're the person who gets to decide.
That said, we love YouTube. It's a great platform. YouTube, you're so wonderful.
I would never criticize YouTube.
No. It's friendly, polite, nudging in the right direction.
That's right. Please don't demonetize us.
Thanks for watching Free Media this week. We'll be back next week with more content. In the meantime, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.